Our first guest tonight is a Tony-winning, Emmy-nominated actor you know from his work in Ray Donovan and Spotlight. He is starring in Doubt, a Parable at Roundabout Theater. Company's Todd Hames Theater on Broadway through April 21st. Please welcome to the show, Liev Schreiber, everybody. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you for making time for us. And tonight you're going to go and do a show tonight.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one.
You'll be all right.
Yeah,
You'll be all right. You've described Doubt as a perfect play. What about it makes it a perfect play for you?
Well, you know, it's 90 minutes. We start at 7 and you're out in time for dinner.
That's so nice.
In my mind.
I think for a lot of audience members, they're like, sounds pretty perfect.
That's it. No, it's an extraordinary piece of writing by John Patrick Shanley. It's the most economical, wonderfully layered and incredible play. I'm thrilled to be in it.
You play a priest, and you found out you got an offer for the part after you were leaving Mass, which is maybe...
Odd for a Jewish guy.
Yeah, odd for a Jewish guy. So that really does seem like a sign, the one time you go.
Yeah. No, Scott Ellis, the interim artistic director of Roundabout, called me, and he called me right after I'd come back from Mass with my in-laws. And, you know, after 7 years of Ray Donovan, where I played a character who was abused by a Catholic priest, and playing Marty Barron in Spotlight, the guy who led the investigation of the Boston Diocese, I wasn't really eager to do another, you know...
Complete the trilogy?
Yeah, and you know, I said to Scott, you know, I feel like I've kicked the Catholic Church enough.
Yeah.
And I also felt like, you know, going to this Mass in my small town in Montauk was really kind of moving to me. And after, you know, Scott and I worked it out, I went to a lot of Masses. A friend of mine, Rob McKinley, and I started like going to every Mass we could as a sort of like a research thing.
Would you go to multiple Masses a day?
Multiple Masses, yes,
Wow.
we would go to 2 Masses a day.
Wow.
I mean, I would go to 2 Masses. It was interesting.
That's amazing for a Jewish guy to be so much better a Catholic than...
You know...
Yeah.
I'm actually wearing a Catholic medallion now. I'm making a transition. I know.
Did you? Could you tell the difference between a good and a bad sermon? I mean, going to a bunch.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So there are good ones.
Yeah, there's a pragmatism.
I said that in a way that made it sound like I
almost
shocked.
missed it.
Yeah.
No,
I didn't mean to.
No,
I realized the audience
missed
heard it, and that was an accident.
I heard the laugh, and I was like, oh no. Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, I mean, maybe you don't know.
Well, it's about a performer, right?
Well, it's about reaching the congregation.
Yeah.
It's about talking about things that people care about. And I think in any church, that's how you do it. And our play is set in 1964, which is like right in the middle of Vatican II, which is when the Catholic Church stopped doing Masses in Latin and trying to be more accessible to the parishioners, the congregation.
For those that don't know the story, this is about a priest is accused of sexual misdeeds, and it's also about the rush to judgment when someone is accused. That piece of it does feel, I don't know, as present today as it was not just in 1964, but also when the play was written.
Well, I said that to Scott when he asked me about doing the play. Aside from my hesitance about like poking organized religion any more than the beating it's already taken, was that piece about what does this play say 20 years later? I mean, 20 years later, we were in the thick of the Catholic Church scandal, but I think there's elements in this play now of how deeply polarized we are and, you know, sort of lost our capacity for nuance and complexity in things. And in the rush to win, people have lost the notion of progress. And you've got this kind of, you know, state your position. I think that, for me, feels a little bit like it's a result of social media. You know, I mean, these algorithms that sort of divide us and categorize us for the purposes of marketing and make you take a stand. I'm red, I'm blue, I'm Israel, I'm Gaza, I'm Russia, I'm Ukraine, I'm gay, I'm whatever. You know, it's all that stuff. And I think John really addresses that in this play. It sort of, for me, goes beyond the Catholic Church.
You also, the play never answers the question of guilt or innocence. But I'm wondering, as an actor, in your head, and don't tell me the answer, did you have to decide whether he was guilty or innocent?
Yes.
So you made a decision.
Yes.
Because I guess it would be impossible to act the part without knowing.
Well, I think that's part of, seeing the play different 20 years later. For me, it's, and I know I'm not gonna be able to hide this, right? But Scott said to me when I thought about doing the role, he said, I never thought he did it. And if he didn't do it, what sort of issues does that bring up in our rush to judgment, in our desire to sort of take each other down? Those are the elements of the play that I think speak to this moment that we're in, and the polarization certainly that I think we're feeling politically as we see, for instance, the Ukraine aid bill getting held up in Congress over sort of, in my opinion, what is silly politics.
You also do give sermons in the play, and much like what I imagine happens in sermons at a Broadway show, you have people coughing, crinkling.
Yeah.
Do you like that moment? Does it make you feel like you're actually giving a sermon?
Well, cell phones shouldn't really exist in 1964.
Yeah.
So when one rings, it's sort of a challenge in terms of how you improvise your way around that.
Yeah, so because I guess a priest in 1964
Yeah.
would just think the devil was there.
Right, or the opposite.
Or the opposite.
Something divine about that sound, which I think is a better way to go if you're avoiding guilt.
Keep you better in the play.
Yeah.
I got a lot more to ask you about. Thank you so much for being. We're going to be back with more Liev after this. We're back with Liev Schreiber, everybody. I would be terrified to do a Broadway show, but you had something very scary happen to you recently where you had to leave a show after it started.
The worst nightmare that an actor could possibly ever experience. I was in my dressing room, and I had a terrible headache, like a really bad headache. I thought it was maybe a fast food headache, but it felt a little stronger than that. And I'm walking down the stairs, and I'm thinking, this is not normal. I don't feel okay. I saw Amy Ryan backstage. And you know how actors say things to each other, like, break a leg, Mared, good show. And I suddenly noticed that I didn't remember what I was supposed to say to her. And I'd said it at least 30 times by that point. So something was wrong. I also couldn't remember her name, so I knew something was really wrong.
That's the second red flag.
Yeah. So I kind of weaseled my way out of that interaction, keep going in my priest outfit. And I get over to stage left where I make my entrance from, and I see the play in the corner, and there's a light on it, and I don't recognize it at all. And I look up to the stage manager, and I go, something's not right. And he looks down, and he calls places. And so I go on, and I do about the first 6 or 7 lines. Don't worry, this story has a happy ending. I do the first 6 or 7 lines of the play sort of automatically. I realize I'm not connected, so I decide, let me try to get connected again. And the minute I do that, it all vanishes. The play is gone from my head. I'm looking out into a dark audience. I know I'm in a play, but I don't know what play I'm in. I look down at my clothes, and I realize I'm a priest, which is helpful, but not giving me any lines. I come off stage. They all are very worried about me. I can see they rush me to my dressing room. The next thing I remember is hearing my understudy doing the lines from the play and thinking, it sounds really good. I wish I knew what it was. My doctor shows up, who's a friend, and he has terrified expression. My wife shows up. She looks terrified. I think, okay, I've had a stroke. This is it. I go get the MRI. No brain bleed. Perfectly fine. Might I add, a fairly good-looking brain, the guy said.
You showed me a picture backstage. It's good.
It's nice, right?
Yeah, it's good.
Like a 12-year-old girl. It's
it's gorgeous.
Sorry. Anyways, I find out ultimately from a neurologist that I had something called transient global amnesia. And apparently, my wife looked it up online, it's brought on by migraines and rigorous coitus. My wife then asks me what coitus is, and, and I said, honey, that's sex, and so it's like rough sex. And she said, oh, you were having rough sex. And I said, no, I had a headache. And that's what happened to me. Now, the guy said, you'll never have this again, and it'll be gone in 8 to 24 hours, which I didn't believe. And as a typical sort of Jewish hypochondriac person, I'm convinced that I've had a stroke, and they just didn't find it. I go home, I'm having like paranoid episodes about our guests who are in the house. I just figure I better go to sleep because I'm going to say something dumb. I go to sleep, I wake up, I remember the whole play. I call the theater and I say, I'm coming up to do the matinee. And they're like, no, your doctor said you have to stay away till Tuesday. And I was like, no, I need to know that I can do the play. And I never had another problem with it. I was embarrassed, and I thought everyone would think I was lying and taking a night off from the theater. I have this obscure thing. I call a friend, Jonathan, and I say, so I had this thing. It's called transient global amnesia. And without missing a beat, he says, oh yeah, my friend Nathan had that. He was having sex with his wife in the shower and lost 2 days. So apparently it really is a thing. And I guess...
I'm so sad for you that you got it via headache.
I know. When the other option is to literally have your brains fucked out, I had to get it from a migraine. But
I bet if I had amnesia from a migraine, my wife would see it as an opportunity to be like, no, we had sex.
What I thought we could do then is probably look up all the people who've had it and decide whether it was a migraine or a headache. But that would migraine or rough sex, but that would probably take too long.
I thought it was a nice parallel when you mentioned Ukraine. You've made multiple trips. You have Ukrainian ancestry and roots, and you've spent time with Zelensky. I mean, how do you feel? I mean, you mentioned the fact that the GOP is holding up an aid bill and tying it to other demands and refusing to vote on it independently. It must really take you aback that people are both siding what seemed like a very clear issue.
It's striking to me, you know, when I think about. I wrote something for Time recently, and we had an opportunity to write something. I thought, well, I have to write this for Blue Check, and I was thinking, how do I really feel about this? And you know, a lot of people think it's because I'm of Ukrainian ancestry, and I don't feel that way at all. I feel it's because I'm American. I care about this, and I think about my grandparents and the generation of Americans who fought in World War II and established. What we now know is our democracy, and the reason why we're the #1 destination for anyone in the world who wants to improve their station in life is because of the freedoms and liberties that come out of our democracy. And Ukraine is on the front line of a global war, in my opinion, on democracy. And I think not to suggest that in any way America is the policing the world for democracy, but that at the very least, we should be in solidarity with them and that we should be supporting them. So many of us have come from these countries that were struggling under these autocrats and dictators. And it just feels very close to home for me, not really as a Ukrainian, but as an American. I feel like we've lost those values a little bit, or we've forgotten what those values are, or what it is to be American.
It's a really important message, and thank you for being so vocal about it. And thank you for being here. Break a leg tonight.
Thank you.
It was such a delight. Liev Schreiber, everybody. Doubt, A Parable, playing at the Roundabout Theater Company's Todd Haynes Theater through April 21st. We'll be right back with Busy Phillips. Our next guest is a very talented actress. You know from shows such as Cougar Town and Freaks and Geeks, as well as movies like Mean Girls. She stars in season 3 of Girls 5 Eva, which is streaming now on Netflix. Let's take a look.
You guys, I made my own clothes out of stuff at the hotel. Loofahs, the comforter. This is the new me. Totally original, still very hot, but on my terms. This is not to appeal to your sack, buddy, okay?
Good, it doesn't.
Oh.
My thing's an older lady in a raincoat.
Please welcome back to the show our friend Busy Phillips, everybody. Welcome back.
Well, and that clip featuring your
John
own
Lutz, our
John
own
Lutz.
writer, John Lutz, scene stealer.
Yeah,
John Lutz.
I mean, he got the laugh.
Yeah.
So
He actually was the one who picked the clip tonight. That's so
that's
weird.
so interesting.
Yeah, we
how
were like,
that-
find something good for Busy. And he's like, this
Interesting.
works. Yeah.
Like, all jokes aside, I truly had the greatest time season 3 working with John Lutz.
He's
He
the
is,
best.
He is a real dream, guys.
Yep,
And,
I'm working on 2 decades of being a collaborator with John Lutz.
Yeah.
I know how good it can be.
Well, you're very lucky.
I want to check in on your kids because
Yeah.
I am always very happy to hear about Birdie and Cricket. I
Yeah.
can't believe how old they're getting. How are they doing?
Crazy. So Birdie's 15, almost 16. Cricket is 10, almost 11. They're doing great.
they're real New Yorkers.
That's really awesome.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Because I'm very LA and they were born at Cedars-Sinai and I legit thought I was having like LA kids. And then we moved here in 2020 and I started doing Girls Five Eva and Cricket's like, I gotta go to the bodega and get my bagel. In the morning, I'm just like, what is this? Like, what is happening?
That's how long it takes. It only takes like 4 years to be in New York.
Only takes, for children especially, because,
Yeah.
you know, they're like sponges.
Yeah.
So they've really soaked up all the goo on the street and they are
That's what
in.
it's there for, to be sucked up.
That is so true. And then my older daughter decided that she wanted to go to boarding school. And I was like, great. So I guess, well, look, we're on the East Coast now. This is a thing East Coast people do.
Hotbed of those.
Yes. And then she said, I would like to go to this boarding school in Sweden.
You know, parents are allowed to say no.
This is a point that so many people on my Instagram have brought up,
Okay.
Sass. But the fact of the matter is, we were kind of playing chicken with her. I think Birdie's dad, Mark, and I were feeling like there's no way she's going through with it.
Oh, interesting. Because there would be more value if she decided it was a bad idea.
Correct.
Right.
She did not decide that.
So she's going, she's in Sweden.
She is currently in Sweden.
Wow. And has she adapted to Swedish life? Is it different for her?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how they, you know.
Oh,
very
that's how they say it?
Yeah. Hey.
If I go to Sweden and do that and people look at me sideways, I'm going to be very mad, Beezy.
Well, I walk into a store. There's great shopping in Stockholm.
Yeah.
So when I go to visit her, you know, I have like my own days, and I go in, and the woman or person working there will say like, hey, because I have blonde. You know, I look like I could be Swedish.
Yeah, 100%.
Ish. We have none. It's not in either of our families. This is
Right.
like a total anomaly. She picked it because of a Netflix show.
Okay.
That she liked called Young Royals.
Sure.
That takes place at a Swedish boarding school. Guys, I'm not saying that I'm the best parent. I'm just saying these are the choices we made.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, so they'll say like, hey, and then as soon as I open my mouth, they're like, can I help you with anything, ma'am?
Have you embarrassed your daughter in Sweden?
I mean, I'm a constant embarrassment to both of my children. Internationally. Yeah, that's really actually now internationally.
Yeah.
That's so fair. For instance, we went to the mall there, and there were 2 escalators going down, and one of them was broken, and everyone was just lining up to just take their turn to go down the escalator, and I was like, we'll just walk down the other escalator, the broken escalator.
Yeah, it's just stairs.
It's just stairs,
Yeah.
Seth. Birdie was like, absolutely not.
Really? She wouldn't walk down it?
No, because it was just like, we just wait our turn and we just do, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at
The
that.
Swedes have a term called lagom,
Okay.
which translates to not too much, not too little. I have never been lagom. I am only too much.
You did. You were giving yourself a hard time, but you are an incredible mother. You brought your girls to an Olivia Rodrigo concert. MSG.
Yes.
Look at this. That is. That's Birdie there rocking a dress that is your dress from the '90s. Look at that.
Yeah, that.
90s fashion is back.
It is, baby. I think that's me at like the Scream premiere or something, like some premiere in Los Angeles when I was a very young actress.
Yeah.
And and I held on to a bunch of my dresses, and your producer was so sweet. He was like, did you hold on to them in the hopes that your daughter would wear them again someday? And I was like, no, I held on to them in the hopes that I would wear them again someday.
Speaking of premieres, you had a very novel Girls Five Eva premiere here in New York City.
We had the greatest time, which is the 3rd season of the show. And if you haven't seen it, we play 4 women who were a part of a 90s pop group that then gets sampled by a present day artist, and they try to make a comeback present day in their 40s plus. And it's really funny.
It's so
and
funny.
Really great. And so for our 3rd season premiere, Netflix was like, you know what would be amazing? You've got Sarah Bareilles, Renee Lee Goldsberry, Paula Pell, and you're gonna sing, and we're gonna do this big premiere. And so we were all so excited. And they said, and in front of the Palace Theater, we're gonna build a little stage and we're gonna put you in a stretch Hummer limo. And we're gonna roll up and you're gonna come out and sing the song. But for people who aren't from New York or don't know, we were getting ready at the Plaza Hotel, which is across the street from the theater, the Palace Theater, directly across the street. So we got into this stretch Hummer limo, and this is not a joke, it pulled forward like 30 feet. And then we exited. It was a very Girls 5 Eva moment.
That's great. So you got in one side and got out the other side.
Basically, that's what happens.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
It is a very Girls 5 Ever moment. It's very good. It was a nice tie into the show.
It was a nice tie into the show, and also, like, true to form, we are such our characters in the car. Renee was sort of like just looking in does anyone have a mirror, and looking, and Sarah Bareilles was like taking a really sweet video of all of us, and I was like, guys, can we just have one moment where I just want to say, no matter what happens, I love you guys so much. And Paula Pell's like, nope, don't you ever, don't you get me started. No. And I was like, it was amazing.
It's
it was
really amazing. It's an amazing show. You guys are a great group.
Thank you so
also,
much.
this is so amazing. You've got a new talk show, Busy This Week, which is going to be on the Home Shopping Network, QVC, filming here in New York City.
Yeah, Seth, because you're so good at this job, there are no spots available for women.
Yes.
No, but I love QVC Plus and HSN Plus. I've worked with them before and done a special with them, and I said to Casey St. Ange, who was my showrunner on Busy Tonight, do you think we could talk them into giving me another talk show on QVC Plus? And she was like, yeah, that's where your audience is. Let's do it. So we did it.
I'm so excited.
I know,
It's great.
me too.
I'm so happy to have you back in the game.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for being here. You guys,
Thank you.
Busy Phillips, Girls 5 Ever, streaming now on Netflix. We'll be right back with more Late Night.